Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bone2Pick. I am Michael Davis. And before we get started, a couple quick announcements. I'm really happy to announce that we are back as a podcast. So you can check us out on iTunes and SoundCloud at HIP-BoneMusic Presents Bone2Pick. So check us out there. And also wanted to give a shout out to everybody for all your support and kind words lately. And we hope you'll keep giving us those likes and thumbs up on YouTube and Facebook and all of those. And also, of course, continuing to share the links with your students and colleagues and just anybody you think might be interested in these wonderful stories of the artists we've been fortunate enough to get to interview. And this month's artist is absolutely no exception. He is one of the jazz world's premier lead trumpet players. He is the great Earl Gardner. As most of you, I'm sure, already know, Earl was a very important part of the Thad Jones Mel Lewis / Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, being the lead trumpet player for 29 years. He has been a member of many of the jazz world's finest bands, including ensembles led by McCoy Tyner, Charlie Hayden, Carla Bley, the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band, Dizzy Gillespie, the Mingus Big Band, just to name a few. He was the subject of a Downbeat feature article entitled Lead Trumpet Supreme. He has countless pop and rock credits, including Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, Aerosmith, Eric Clapton, Santana, Sting, Aretha Franklin, Paul Simon, Luther Vandross. I could keep going, but we'd like to get to the interview at some point here today. He has been a member of the famed Saturday Night Live band since 1985. He has appeared on numerous Broadway shows, and the orchestra's on Broadway. And it's always a pleasure to see and get to work with Earl. And doing this interview reminded me of the very first time I got to work with him was in, you may not remember this one, Earl, but in 1985, Chris Bodie and I were working together in town, and Chris was just a sideman back then, and he had a gig with the OJs that he was contracting the horns for, and so he thought, man, I wonder if I could get Earl Gardner to do it. And so he called up Earl. Earl said he would do it, and we all jumped in Chris's Volkswagen Rabbit, drove up to Boston, did the gig, and then drove back after the gig, kind of a harbinger of things to come. But it was a wonderful time, as it is every time you get to work with this great gentleman. So, Earl, first of all, thank you so much for coming up to New City today and spending some time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
And let's go way back. You know, I always think of the Philly connection, and I want to talk about that, but I understand you grew up in New York, and of course you went to the great Music and Arts High School. Maybe talk about your early memories and just kind of things that led you into music and to the trumpet.
Yeah, I don't really know how I got into it. No, seriously, growing up, I was, listening to music, but just, as a kid, just listening to whatever. My dad he had lots of records, like all kinds of stuff, and there anything from like Cal Tjader and like Duke Ellington and Basie and he used to listen to music a lot, and I listened to it with him once in a while, but I didn't really think much about it. And when I decided to not decided, but in sixth grade they gave us these music, they called them music tests, which was basically just a hearing test, like
oh, okay.
You identify like pitches, it's like one
right.
is higher, and I got them all right, or so when I went to junior high school, they put me in the music. I think there were 3 music classes in 7th grade. So like 3 of them had music curriculum along with with everything else, and so they put me in a music class, and they asked me if they said, well, what instrument do you want to play? And I said saxophone. Because I thought saxophone was small, didn't have to, wouldn't be heavy
economy
to
of
carry
movement.
around. Yeah, thinking like sax would be cool, So, and they said, well, we don't have sax. You're in the brass class, so of course, me thinking, I'm sorry, I'm thinking like, well, isn't sax made out of metal? Brass is metal, right? So. and they were like, no, it's a reed instrument. And that was like, okay, reed. Now you got me. I have no idea what you're talking about. So they said, no, these are your choices: trumpet, trombone, baritone horn, tuba, or drums. That was the class I was in. So it was brass and percussion. And that was the class. I guess the other class was with strings. And I I kind of looked at the trumpet. I went, yeah, I'll take that. That was the smallest thing. It seemed like the easiest thing to play. It only had the 3 valves. You didn't have to worry about a slide, and the tuba was like that, and the baritone was a little smaller than the tuba. And I picked the trumpet. That's how that's the story behind picking the trumpet. It wasn't like I was sitting there going, one day I'm going to play trumpet.
Well, clearly a good choice, and for all of us as well. So. And then from there you went to music and art. So what was that experience like back then? For those of you who don't know, for those of you who don't know, music and art is now LaGuardia High School, but a very famous music high school. The show Fame from, I guess that was in the 70s or 80s, was based on Music and Art High School, and it's really an amazing program. Lots of, in addition to Earl, many great alumni, Marcus Miller, Buddy Williams, the endless list. But anyway, tons. That experience for you. Sorry to interrupt.
It was no, it's fine. It was, I was amazed. I mean, because I didn't realize how great that experience was at the time. Yeah, I mean, at the time that seemed normal. I mean, because it was a regular high school. You had all your regular high school courses, plus music courses. You know, they had all different kinds of orchestras. You know, like 4 or 5 orchestras. I think there were like 7 orchestras, and 6 concert bands. You know, and they had a jazz band, and so you had, they would put you in whatever orchestra they thought you could, you would be able to play in, and different levels. So like I think Orchestra 7 was like the top orchestra, and I think I was in like orchestra like -1 or something. It was and the concert band and the jazz band. I actually was in the jazz band, and I don't know why or how I got into it, but I played in the jazz band, and I was just playing like second or third parts. I wasn't like playing lead. It wasn't like oh yeah, he's a prodigy, let this guy blow on. I definitely wasn't a jazz player, so but it was but we got theory courses and counterpoint and conducting, like conducting. It was very, it was comprehensive. Just the musical, the knowledge that I learned from, because my freshman year in college, like in theory, theory 101 or whatever it was, I was tutoring people in the class. Because all the stuff I had already learned at music and art. So
that's cool.
So people were coming to me like, "Oh, how did you do this?" Like, I'm like, "Well, it's like this is what's happening. This is a triad. And if you invert it, and they're looking at me like, what?" And I'm like looking at them like, and the teacher, and the teacher's like, they're giving you this stuff, and it's on just flying through it, and and I'm sitting there going, "This is like, I got this in." Like the last couple of years ago, in junior year at Music and Art, we went through this already, and it was that's when I realized how great the school was, the high school was, and plus it was regular high school. They just playing, they had a baseball team. I played on the baseball team, and
cool.
Lugging equipment every day up these stairs they had to walk up to get to the school. It was. On the subway too. It was just It was insane.
Total New York experience.
Yeah,
in high school.
Yeah, it was nuts with the books and the equipment in the subway. Like at 7:30 in the morning.
That's when you were glad you took trumpet instead of tuba.
Yeah. The tuba wouldn't have made it.
No, we'd have to cut that loose. Well, from there you of course went to Temple University, which is. Always had a great music program, and certainly now with Terrell Stafford, there's an amazing program they've got going, and Dick Oates there. But for you, what was that like back then, and what led you to go to Temple?
Well, my family was moving to Pennsylvania. They were moving to Harrisburg, and so against I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in New York, not that I knew anything about it. It wasn't about because of music or anything. It's just like I grew up there and I wanted to stay. Sure. And my dad was like, says, well, if you're gonna stay here, you got to find some place to stay. You got to find a job, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh, yo, I can do that, like. But then when I thought about it, I'm going like, well, I can't do that because, I'm like 18 and like I'm gonna go find a job and then find some place to stay, and so I wound up auditioning for Temple because it was down there, and it was. I had heard about it. I hate to say it, but it's like I had heard that Bill Cosby had gone there, and back then before found out like what he was like, that was kind of like a big deal. And it's like, sure, well, it's a good school, and I had heard that it was a good school, so I auditioned and got in there, and I auditioned for Juilliard in Manhattan, and but I got into Temple. Julie Manhattan were they were like waiting lists. They were like, say, well, if 300,000 people don't get in, you're in. I was like, okay, cool. Come on, I got a shot. But they actually took me and they said like, okay, yeah, you can come here. I was like, okay, well, should I wait to hear from them or should I just take what I get? So that's what brought me to Temple, and like you said, they had a really good music school. The first chair players from the Philly Orchestra taught there, and at the time they didn't really have a jazz band.
Oh, really?
A friend of mine, this guy that I knew, he passed away. This guy Bill Zacagni. He actually started the jazz program there, but it wasn't like an official. It wasn't officially linked to the school. He just put it. He put it together, and and we would get together and play. And we actually went to the Quinnipiac Jazz Festival as the Temple University Jazz Band. And came in fourth, I think. It was like and it was the smallest big band up there. I think we only had like 13 or 14 piece band, and they had these bands up there, like 30 pieces, and we went up there with this little band and did really well, and so after that, then the Temple decided, oh yeah, okay, you guys did a great job. We'll take it from here, and until they made one of the teachers there, they put him in, put him in charge of the jazz band, and he didn't have a clue, like, what was going on, and you got these stock arrangements that were not great, we were doing like, Basie stuff, like, Basie arrangements and, Buddy Rich stuff, and, but when after the festival, then this teacher took over, and it became, oh, this is not good. And it was kind of a drag because Bill actually started that program, and then after that they kind of just said, oh yeah, like I said, thanks for playing. See you later. We got it. So that it wasn't really the same, and so, but now, like, with Terrell down there and Dick and there, it's really, I'm sure it's actually a jazz program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things I want to really to hear you talk about is your relationship with Thad Jones and Mel Lewis, such an important band, and Thad in particular, who was, to me, probably, I mean, you could argue the greatest big band writer of all time. He's certainly in your top three, however you want to frame it. But talk to us a little. I have a lot of questions about the band in particular, but maybe talk about how you got into the band. I think you were still in Philly when you first got connected to them, and how did that come to pass?
Well, there was this drummer down there, this guy Phil Giordano, who had a big band down there, and he had a great book, just like all this. He had all the Buddies charts, and Woody charts, and Thad Mel charts, and Kenton. He just had this great book, and it was a rehearsal band. And we would rehearse every once in a while. but Mel gave him lessons. He would come. Really? Mel would come down to Philly to give him lessons, and Phil, he's a good drummer, and like I said, the band was really good. And so Mel would come down there, give him lessons, and stay over at his house, and then go back. So one of the times he gave him a lesson, Phil got a gig at this restaurant that upstairs they had. It was kind of like a club, and they had there was on the stage for a big band. So he got this gig at this club down in Center City in Philly, and the one night he had, I think we gigged like every Tuesday or something. Every Tuesday nights he would have us, like, I don't know if it was once a month or twice a month or once in a while. I forget. It wasn't like a steady. It was a steady gig in the sense that we would play there whenever they would have us play there. So one of those Tuesdays, Mel was giving him a lesson, and Mel was staying over, and we happened to be playing that night. And so Phil brought him to the club. So I didn't know that he was going to be there, and I hadn't seen Mel when we played the set, and after the set was over, Mel came up to me and he says, yeah, man, you really sound great. And I was, oh, thanks a lot, And I didn't know it was Mel because he had a beard, and I hadn't seen him with a beard. And Phil didn't say, oh, Mel's coming. Mel's coming tonight. So I'm standing there, and he says, yeah, you really sound great. And I'm like, well, thanks a lot. And that night I happened to be playing lead, so he's so I'm just standing at the bar having a beer, and he says, well, he says, do you have a card or anything? And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't know it's like a business card, And I'm like, I was thinking like, what do you mean, like a baseball card? I don't know what you do. I don't know what you mean. He says, no, a card with your number on it. I said, no. He says, well, let me have your number. He says, I might use it sometime. And I'm thinking, like, use me for what? What is this guy talking about? So I got a napkin. It was kind of half wet, and like scribbled my number down and gave it to him. Like, here you go. There you go, kid. Take it easy. And as I hand him the napkin, Phil comes over. Phil comes walking over. He says, hey, he says, I see you met Mel. And I'm like, Mel who? He says, Mel Lewis. And I look at Phil and I look at Mel and I'm like, I said, that's not Mel Lewis. He said, that's Mel. And Mel's standing there smiling, it's a spirit. And I'm looking at him. I said, really? And Phil's like, yeah. And I walked down to the other end of the bar and just like stared at him. Then I came walking back and I said, you really Mel Lewis? He says, yeah. And Phil's laughing. They think it's hysterical. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's nice to meet you. He says, yeah, sounds great, blah, blah, blah. And so we finished the night and everything. And so at the end of the night, I think we did 3 sets. And at the end of the night, he says, okay, well, he says, I'll be giving you a call. He says, because we've got this tour coming up, and I might need a trumpet player, so like I'll give you a call. So I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. That works for me, and he left. So as soon as he left, I'm thinking, that's not going to happen, because
when does that happen?
He's in New York. There's plenty of trumpet players up there. You don't need me. So he left, and I didn't think anything more about it. Meanwhile, like friends of mine would be calling me up, going, "Did Mel call you yet?" And I'm like, "No, he's not going to. Stop bothering me." And catch, other friends of mine would call me, "Hi, this is Mel Lewis. Is Earl there?" And I'm like, giving them choice words like, "Leave me alone." And so I guess it was about 2-3 weeks later, he called, and my roommate at the time, he called. I was sleeping. I was like, just taking a nap or something, and which is something I never do. And I was just like passed out, and my roommate comes in the room. He says, Earl, Mel Lewis is on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, sure, right. This has been going on for... He says, no, I really think it's him. I'm just like, yeah, okay. I said, well, take his number down. Tell him I'll call him back. And my roommate's looking at me like, okay. So he goes and he tells Mel, he says, well, he's kind of busy. He'll call you back. So a couple hours later, I get up and my roommate says, here's the number. So I look at it and I see it's like a New York area code. It's like 914. And I'm like, okay. So I dialed the number because I figured, I said, like, well, okay, it's not any of the idiots from down here calling me. So I called the number and he picks up. He says, hello. And I said, like, is this Mel Lewis? He says, yeah. He says, Earl? And I'm like, yeah. He says, how you doing? And I'm like, is this really Mel Lewis? So that went on for a couple minutes. And then finally, when he convinced me that it was him, I'm like, yeah, how you doing? He said, and he starts laughing. He says, you really didn't think it was me? I said, no, because for the last 3 weeks, friends of mine have been calling me, telling me that they're you. So he finally, so he says, listen, he says, we have this tour coming up, and we're auditioning trumpet players, and I told Thad about you, and he wants you to come up and play on Monday. So I said, okay. Really? He's like, he said, yeah, come up to this Monday. He said, which is, like 3 or 4 days. So I said, yeah, okay. And he says, great. He says, we're at the Vanguard. You know where that is? Like, yeah. So I hung up. So I didn't have a car. So I told my roommate, I said, like, he wants me to come up and play on Monday at the Vanguard. He's like, oh, yeah, that's great, So this friend of mine, another trumpet player who passed away a few years ago, he said, word got out, and he said, I'll take you up to the Vanguard. It's like, okay. So we drove up that Monday night, and we get to the front door, and I'm kind of freaking out because I'm like, I'm not ready to do this. This is not happening. And so he drove me up to the Vanguard, and we get out of the car and we get to the front door. And it was probably, it's about 9:15. It was early because back then the set started at 10 o'clock. And I get to the front door and I'm standing there and I turned to my friend and I said, I can't, Rick, I can't go in here. I can't do this. He says, yeah, you can do this. I said, I can't. This is it's the Vanguard. This is like Thad and Mel's band, We listen to them all the time. Like, I can't do this. And he says, I drove you all the way up here. Says, you're going in there and you're playing. I'm like, okay. He says, so I said, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? So we went in there, and Lynn Nicholson was sitting. He was sitting on the floor back, in the trumpet section. He was like warming up. And I came walking in, and I was real big then. It's like 300 pounds. I come walking in with the gig bag, and I come walking to the back, and he looks up and he says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm playing with the band tonight. And he says, really? Like this look on his face was so like incredulous. It's just like, really? He says, what are you supposed to be playing? I said, the third book. And then he goes, really? Now I'm really freaking out because I'm thinking like, oh, what have I gotten into here? So he says, well, here over there, next to the drums. So it's like, get in there, and I set up, and he just keeps warming up. So I get my stuff out, and slowly everybody's coming in because I'd never been to the Vanguard before, so I was just kind of up on the bandstand, just took my horn out and it kind of warmed up. Like I don't even know if I did warm up because. So it was all set up, and then so the band starts scraggling in. Dodgins comes in, and Pepper, and then Forcino comes in, and Frank Gordon, who had joined the band. I think he had joined the band maybe a couple weeks before me. So they come in, so the band's up there, and Mel comes in, he goes, oh yeah, he said you made it, that's great, I said, yeah, thanks, like, why am I here? Oh, you'll be fine. Yeah, and I'm still looking at him going like, this is Mel Lewis. Like, this is really... So so Thad comes in, and the band's up there, so we're getting ready to start the set. So Porcino, Porcino, he was warming up, and when he would warm up, he hear the arrows be coming out the sides. He sounded horrible warming up, and I'm thinking that going like, this is Al Porcino? Wow, what happened to him? Because when he would warm up, he would do these like long tones, but like I don't know if it was like a Carmine thing or what, but if you and you get this like horrible sound coming out, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, oh wow, he's really, something's happened to him,
Right.
So they call the set and they hand out the paper, and so I'm looking through the book, putting the set together. So the first tune was Second Race, and back then, like the original chart, they had written an insert for the chart that was at the back, that was at the end of the chart. So you had to start at the back and then go to the chart, go back to the regular chart. So Porcino is explaining this to me. So Thad's up in front. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Like this is Thad Jones, Mel Lewis Orchestra, blah, 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 blah. And Porcino's back there going, okay, so now we start here at the end, and we play down to here, and then we go to the top, and then he's talking in his Porcino voice, which is, you can hear him over everybody. And Thad's up there, introducing me, he says, and the first tune's featured, blah, 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 and he hears Porcino back there. And I hadn't met there yet. So Porcino's telling me, and then we go from here to there, and then we play to here, and then there's the background, and then he'll cue us on the background, and Thad turns around and he looks right at me, because Porcino's like, I'm here, Porcino's there, and Porcino's there, and then we do this and this, and Thad turns around and looks right at me like he's staring at me like,
Oh, no.
and Porcino doesn't notice. He doesn't see that. And then we go from there then we go to letter D, and then and I'm just standing there like staring at Thad like, he's gonna kill me. And Porcino looks up and he says, "I'll tell you the rest later." And Thad finally turns around. He finishes introducing the rest. It was. I mean, this is my introduction. This is like the first night before I play a note. I'm toast. I'm not getting this gig because Thad hates me. I haven't played a note. I don't play that good anyway. He's not gonna. This was a waste of time. So in a funny way, it kind of relaxed me because I'm thinking, like my friend said, what could go wrong? It's like it just did. I got nothing to lose. So we played. We did the gig started and we played, and that was my first gig, my first encounter with Thad.
Wow, what a great story! Boy, I think between you and Dick Oates, the best first story for getting on a band stories. That's awesome.
Yeah, his story was kind of fun.
Also,
kind of crazy.
Quite good, but anyway, thank you for sharing that, Earl. That's an awesome story. And for those who don't know, Al Porcino, one of the legendary lead trumpet players of all time, but equally legendary character. So I can imagine what that felt like for you. For somebody who's such a huge fan like myself, like if you ever heard the band, you have to be a huge fan. But when I was fortunate just to see the band live once in Rochester. I'm sure you were there. But Thad seemed like such a dynamic leader. Like he really, you could almost sense the music from just his physical being and the way he kind of led the band.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could just share your thoughts about what he was like personally and as a band leader, and how you perceived how he got the music out of you guys.
Well, that's a good question. It's hard. He felt the music. He felt it inside, and I mean you can tell just like from his writing the way he wrote. But he would hear the band out front. He'd be out front. He would hear the band, and while the band's playing, he would he would have music going on in his head and ideas of what, because he would make up backgrounds for us, like when somebody be soloing. he would pick up his horn and he would play something. He would play something like, okay, I want you guys to play. Tell the saxes, play this. You know, trombones play this, and trumpets, you know, while playing, and he'd bring us in, and he'd be making up charts. He'd be making up backgrounds while the music's going on.
Wow, cool.
And the way he was, the way he seemed was the way he was. You know, he was very, very joyful. You know, that's he loved the music. He loved the band. And it came out, and the way he acted up on the bandstand, that's the way he was. I mean, he was always, he's up there clapping, and he was just happy. While when the band was playing, he was happy, and he wasn't like that all the time, but on the bandstand, he was really the music. He made the music. The music came out of him. Mm-hmm. He enjoyed it, and he enjoyed. Changing it like on the fly. He would make changes while we're playing. When he would be mad, he would get mad. But it would never last long, and he didn't like it when you were mad at him. You couldn't stay mad at him. I mean, there were numerous times when I would be so pissed off at him, and he just come on, Dugga. And I'd just be like, I can't believe you. I would just start laughing. We had a gig over in Europe. The bus had gone like 4 or 5 hours the wrong way, and had to turn around and go back to make the gig. Yeah, so we got to the gig like I think we were 3 hours late. In Nimes, I think it was in France, at this big arena. It's like this amphitheater. I mean, you've probably played there. It's like the Coliseum or something. That's what it looks like. And we got there, and the people were still staying. Had stayed. Like we were literally 3 hours late for the gig, and everybody but people, the majority of the crowd stayed. So we get off the bus, and all we had time to do was get off the bus and put on our dashikis and get up on the bandstand, like not even warm up or anything. And Thad called this ridiculous set, like the set started with Cherry Juice, which was like ridiculous right then, like 3 in 1 and Little Rascal and Rock. They were all killer charts. And so I see the set, and I said, Thad, I said, we can't do this. I can't do this. This is ridiculous. He said, no, we gotta hit. Come on, we gotta hit them hard. We gotta. I said, we don't have time to warm up. I mean, because literally it was like get off the bus and get on the bandstand. I said, he says, oh, come on, you can do it. And I was like, you can't. He says, come on, we're gonna do it. That's it. It's like when I'm not changing it. So I'm really pissed off. I'm just like. So we get up there and we start the set, and I'm just staring at him, and I'm pointing my horn right at him, and I'm playing as loud as I can. I was like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to kill myself on the first tune. I'm just going to die, and then I'll show you.
I'll see who gets the last laugh.
You think this is good? You think that's funny? So I start. So I'm playing, and I'm staring. I'm pointing the horn at him, and I'm just staring at him like while I'm playing. And every time, we finish playing a lick, and I just be staring at him. He's up there like he's loving it. And we finish the set, and I don't think I ever played better in my life, because I just, I was just so mad. I wasn't even thinking about, like, you're killing yourself. You're mashing the horn into your face. Like, didn't matter. We played the set, finished the thing, and we finished the set. Came off the bandstand, and Thea looks at me. He says, "So, how you feeling, Dugga?" And I'm screaming at him, like choice words, he's like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe. How could you do? You're a trumpet player. You should know better. And he's just smiling. He says, you got through it, didn't you? And I just was like, ah. And all I could do was laugh. And I said, like, how could you do it? And he's just like, I knew you could do it. And he just walked away, like, just. That's awesome. And all I could do was laugh. And he was like, man, you pissed me off so much. Don't you ever do that again. He's like, oh yeah, no problem.
Well, it's I remember that just as a fan of the band when Thad left to move to I guess he moved to Denmark, right, first, or
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah.
What was the feeling like for you guys? I can't imagine. It was like losing him as a leader. I mean, I can't imagine what that felt like for the band.
It was. I mean, it was not good. I mean, I wasn't there when he left because they did a tour that I didn't make, and that was the tour that he decided to stay over there. And he didn't tell anybody that he didn't tell anybody in the band, he didn't tell Mel, and Mel found out from somebody was interviewing him for a paper or something, and they asked him, so like, what do you think about Thad staying in Europe? And Mel was like, he said, he's not staying in Europe. And he said, oh yeah, he's moving to Copenhagen. He's gonna be in charge of the radio band in Denmark. And Mel, that's how Mel found out.
Oh wow.
And so, Mel was just like beside himself. Like he says, I just heard you're staying in Denmark. He said, you're not staying in. That's when Thea finally told him. And so it was, it was like it was like a death in the family. It was, and so, I mean, Mel, I don't think when the band came back, I don't think Mel didn't. I don't think he ever thought that he wasn't going to keep the band going. He just was trying to figure out how, what direction the band was going to take. He was he's not going to replace. He was toying with replacing Thad, but who are you going to replace Thad with? There's,
Yeah.
So he, that was. It took a while before he came up with a solution, which was to get to have Brookmeyer write for the band, make Brookmeyer the MD for the band, and it brought the focus to the band. It made the band the central part. It wasn't like still Mel Lewis in a jazz orchestra, mm-hmm. but the band was the main focus. It wasn't like Thad Jones. There was nobody out front. The band was what was out front. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, it made sense. And Brookmeyer was well respected. People knew him.
Sure.
He used to play in the band, and Bob didn't want to front the band. But he wanted to write for the band, and mm-hmm. Every once in a while he would break out the trombone and his valve trombone and front the band, and we did a couple of tours where we had different, like Buddy DeFranco was like the front man. And he had his charts. He'd come out and do we did 2 or 3 tunes with him. Then it would be us, but. He did different. Mel, he came up with different things. I think a lot of it was the promoters were going like, well, yeah. At first it was like, well, there's no thing. Who's fronting the band? Like, well, there is nobody fronting the band. Well, how can? Mm-hmm. Well, mm-hmm. We're supposed to. Well, it's Mel Lewis, and yeah, well, you're back there. It's like there's nobody in front. They had. So that's when he got Buddy DeFranco we did a tour with him and. Every once in a while they'd have somebody, but it was basically the band, and Brookmeyer writing for the band. So,
yeah, I'm sure that must have also one of the great writers for big band, but I'm sure musically that took a turn coming from Thad to Brookmeyer.
Yeah, it was I was at first I was kind of excited because I had heard listened to the old Brookmeyer stuff that he wrote. We had charts like Willowy for Me and St. Louis Blues in the book, but I was Mel had said check this out. This one chart I'll never forget. This Plain Jane Snavely that he did for I forget what band it was for. It wasn't for Thad and Mel's band. I forget who, but it's just like this this really swinging chart. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, this will be okay.
Yeah.
But Bob was getting more into the orchestral writing, more like through composing, or I guess, because it was there weren't as many open spots for solos, and it was more. I mean, it was more focusing on the band as a whole, as a unit, as a whole. Which, like I said, which made sense. It wasn't as much fun playing about the stuff that he wrote for us as it was playing Thad stuff. But there were two different kinds of, it's two different kinds of writing, And Bob's, he was a great arranger and everything. It was just different styles, different styles. And he was trying to get a different feel that he was getting out of the band, which worked because in the sense that it gave the band its a different identity. It kind of redefined the identity of the band.
Yeah, interesting. Well, another sad chapter in the band, of course, was Mel's passing in 1990. What was your memories back then? And I know he was sick for a while with skin cancer. And then how did the band? Obviously, it's lived on and is still going now, of course. But how was that period for you guys in the band? And how were you kind of approaching moving forward from that point?
Well, you mean like after he passed away?
Yeah.
Well, it's it was kind of like what happened when Thad left. It was like, well, what's the band gonna do? How do we move forward? For a while, we were thinking like the band just might not go. Just this band. But I mean, as far as I was concerned, I was thinking like, well, if we can still play on Mondays and do Thad stuff, and Dennis McCrow took over for Mel, who's like Dennis is like.
Yeah.
Like next to Mel, Dennis is my favorite drummer.
Sure.
Like, it was just like, Dennis always reminded me from the first time I heard Dennis play. I thought I was like, who is this guy? And according to Dennis, he writes like Thad. He arranges like Thad, and he plays like Mel. Like the first time he did a rehearsal, he got a rehearsal band together, and I got off the subject, the band moving on, but Dennis was playing. So it was great having him to transition from Mel passing away and having Dennis do it, because it was just like it felt the same.
Yeah.
But the band decided, a few people decided to say like, well, we need to get some kind of direction and try and get the band out there as without Mel. And so the first thing was changing the name, and decided Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, which I don't know who came up with that, but it's kind of made sense.
It works.
Well, we played the Vanguard every Monday, so that kind of did make sense. So I don't know if it's Moscow or Oates or who, I don't know who came up with the idea to rename the band that. At first I kind of was like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, because it's like having a whole new band. We were identified as Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra, then the Mel Lewis Jazz Orchestra, and then to change the name, like to get away from the Mel Lewis, just like there's no Thad, no Mel, just like a totally different name, but we're still doing Thad stuff, and they're doing the Brookmeyer stuff, and but it didn't seem to make sense to me. But in retrospect, I guess it did, because we didn't lose the identity of they didn't lose Thad and Mel, because we were still doing their stuff. But they started moving, doing less and less of that, and it evolves,
Oh, yeah.
So. But it was a tough transition, but the band kept going. It obviously kept going. So, and it's still going. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, as a fan of the band, I'm thrilled you guys persevered through that tough time, because I'm sure it was. But thanks for sharing all those thoughts about your time with Thad and Mel. So it's a rich history for sure.
If there was something.
I want to ask you quick thoughts about just a few projects that you've mean, we could talk about, there's so many artists you've lent your talents to, but there's a few that jump right out. What was it like working with McCoy Tyner and his big band, which has been kind of you've done several projects with McCoy, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's not enough, and it's a drag because that next to Thad and Mel, that was probably the best band out there. It's like I say, like a band deserving of wider recognition.
Mm-hmm.
It just swung so hard, and you got to listen to McCoy play every gig. McCoy was playing. And it was a distraction sometimes, because when he put the band together, it was. I mean, not when he put it together, but when I got on the band, it was kind of, he had the band for a while. I think they had recorded some albums and stuff. But when I joined the band, it was kind of like the charts were kind of sparse. They weren't like Thad stuff, or like like Thad or Woody Herman or Buddy Rich. They weren't like solid. Like you get the band starts, then there's solo section and then backgrounds, and then you move on to the next interlude or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and then the band starts. Another background. Everything was written out and precise, and McCoy's was a little looser than that. There were there were like long like open sections for solos, and there were backgrounds written, but the band didn't really pay attention too much to the backgrounds, because the band, everybody in the band was a great improvisationalist. Except for me, I play trumpet. I play lead trumpet. That's all I know. You want to blow on this? No, thanks. You don't really want to hear me blow on this, okay? Take it. You want to take a couple choruses? No. I'm good. Got the part here. I'm good. Like, you guys go crazy, Then so Cass would be like sitting there waiting to blow, and. We just like a lot of the bands were like that, but as far as being a lead trumpet in the band, that my focus was to get the band to make it sound like a unit when the band was playing.
Mm-hmm.
When there was a section, if there's a section for the band to play, I want the band to play as one. And when it first started with McCoy's band, it would be like he would, and McCoy didn't really know how to lead a big band either, because he would kind of like when. He knew there'd be a background come in, and he would kind of give you a cue, like 2 bars before he wanted us to come in. And if you saw the cue, then you would come in, and so some of the band would come in, and then gradually the whole band would come in on the background, and it would all be everybody would be playing together with after about 8 bars, then everybody would be the whole band would be. So after I got over the initial like I can't believe I'm playing with McCoy Tyner, I went into him one day and I said, McCoy, I said, can I make a suggestion? He's like, yeah, sure, because he McCoy's he's the best. And I said, listen, when we have backgrounds. You want us to come in with the backgrounds, because I didn't know the charts that well, so I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to like assume anything, because I'm me. I'm like I'm nobody. This is McCoy, and maybe he's got something else going on. So I go, I said, listen, when you want us to come in with the background, I said, if you cue me, give me a cue to let me know, like preferably. Maybe a chorus before or halfway through the chorus before you want us to come in, then I can let the band know.
Right.
Because a lot of times we'd be sitting there, everybody would be sitting there watching them play, and we're just kind of like, and he'd like nod his head, and everybody's just sitting there staring like, yeah. And then finally we dawned on me like, oh, he wants us to come in with the background. So I told him, I said, if you cue me, like look at me, and then I'll pass it up to the so he's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So fine. So that would be, and before we start the gig, tell the lead, I'll tell Joe Ford. I said, listen. So when McCoy's going to cue me for when he wants the background to come in, or the next chorus come, whatever. He's going to cue me, and then I'll let you know, and then I'll count you into the. So yeah, okay, cool. So then that's when it started actually sounding more like a band, with the charts that he had, and so it was kind of cool, because it's kind of like it felt like it kind of solidified the band as a unit.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what you should do as it's like to have the band play as has one. If you don't have somebody in front, you need somebody to to let people know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not just me, not just the lead trumpet. It could be like like in the Vanguard band, like Oates would give the cues.
Right.
Like sometimes if there was a background or wanted to do something like cut out the bass, cut out the room, so I just had the drums and soloists play. Sometimes you can do that and stuff. But like when McCoy, it would be the same thing. It would be to like, okay, I'll let you guys know what's going on. But that's that's kind of like doing that. That kind of helped make that kind of like a unit.
Yeah.
Plus the charts. When McCrell wrote for the band, that really made it easier too, because Dennis wrote these charts that had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
And it was clear cut. It's like, okay, these are the backgrounds for this. Then the next solo, and these are the backgrounds for that, and then we go back to the top, and so it was a little easier that way. But yeah, playing with McCoy was just like it was a joy, because you just had to hear him play the whole time.
Awesome. I would be remiss as a trombone player to not ask you about working with J.J. Johnson and playing on the his brass project, which I would imagine is the other end of the spectrum, because he was known as being very meticulous and having a clear idea of exactly what he wanted on everything. Yeah. What was that experience like working with JJ?
Well, it was we did the recording, and like unfortunately I didn't get to work with him that much, just doing the recording, like just in the studio. But he's definitely, like you said, he knew exactly what he wanted. And you would and he would let you know what he had what he was hearing, what he had in mind, what he wanted you to do on the charts and stuff. And he was like a gentleman, he was just so together, and just playing. When you hear him play, because that was like really the first time I got to really hear him like live, and I was just blown away. Like, that's JJ. Wow.
Yeah.
He still got it. Like he was just. It was incredible experience. I wish I had gotten to hang with him more. But the little bit that I hung with him was just. He was just like I said, very proper. And very together. Like Steve Turre, like hung with him a lot.
Right.
He hung with him a lot. So, but yeah, he was like he was a master. He's like he just hearing him play and going like, said that's why he's JJ.
That's why he's JJ. That's awesome. Well, we got to shift gears over to Saturday Night Live a little bit. You've been doing that since 1985.
And I've heard of that show.
What a run! I mean, it's got to be the one of the longest running situations for horn players, especially in New York here, certainly. But maybe you could just. I mean, we could spend an entire interview on that show probably, but maybe you could just tell us what that's been for your career, what it's like to do a TV show basically one day a week, and also, if you wouldn't mind, I know you shared with me the audition story when you were supposed to audition with Robin, and then somehow you ended up with Steve. So
yeah, Robin still hates me for that.
But anyway, talk about Saturday Night Live through Earl Gardner's eyes.
It's funny that auditioning for the show got me on McCoy's gig.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in a very convoluted way, or like roundabout way. It led to the McCoy gig. because I was supposed to do this gig in Europe with Franco Ambrizzetti. He's a flugelhorn player, that lives in Switzerland, in Lugano, and we had done. I think it was George Gruntz's band had done Gruntz's band, who I did that band subbing for Soloff, who got me on that band. It was that's a whole nother thing. He'll be great. George is like, I don't know who this guy is. And Lou's like, don't worry, you'll like him. Then Lou's telling me, he's like, when this guy calls you up, make sure you say yes. I'm like, what? So, but anyway, when I was supposed to do this gig with Franco, and it was a 10-piece band. So I was gonna go over there, and it was like 10 days or something. Just real cool gig. It was be like, you got 10 days in Lugano, which is gorgeous. I'm sure you've been there. So it's just like amazing. And so when I got this call from Lou Delgado, the contractor, and he said, like, it's Lou Delgado, contractor at SNL, and I want to find out if you'd be interested in auditioning for the show. So I said, yeah. Until I just got the message, and the audition was supposed to come right when I was supposed to be going over to Lugano. So back then I wasn't as good with my business as I am now. Well, I have my wife who's good with my business. So. Well, call him back. What's wrong with you? So I didn't call Lou back for a few days. And because I'm going like, I got to call Europe, and then I got to talk to Franco and try and get out of this gig. And like, to me, that was just like, there was too much to handle. I got to figure out how to call Europe. Like, I don't know how to call Europe.
Yeah, it's just easier to pass on the gig. Like, forget it.
I'm like, I'm not going to do this. It's too much hassle to call over there and say like, Franco, listen, I got to get out of this gig, So I didn't. So for a couple of days, this was going. Instead of me calling Lou saying, "Listen, can I have a couple of days to, can I let you know a few days?" I just didn't answer him. So 2-3 days go by, and I'm still trying to decide what to do. Because I'm thinking this is not that big a deal. Because I'm thinking to myself, it's probably for one show. They're probably doing a skit, and they need a trumpet player to act like an idiot, like I'm your guy. So I didn't do anything about it, And I'm asking people, I say, well, what do you think you should do? And nobody does it. I don't know. So after, I think it was like the third day, I get a phone call from Faddis. And he says, Earl. He said, John. I said, what's up? He goes, how come you haven't called Lou back? And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, Delgado. He says, he called you. He said he called you to find out if you want to audition for SNL. I said, oh yeah, he did. I said, he said, well, how come you haven't called him back? I said, I just saw him. It's like he ran into him on a jingle or something. I just saw him. He asked me. He said, how come Earl hasn't called me back yet? I said, well, I'm supposed to go over to Switzerland and do this other gig, and it's paying like $500, man. Like it's a steady. It's like actual money, He says. I said, besides, it's just for one show. He says, no. They're putting a band together for the house band is for the gig. I was like, oh, really? He said, yeah. He says, call him. I just saw him. He says, he wants you to call him. It's like, okay. So I hung up, and about maybe 10 seconds later, because now I'm trying to find the number. So about 10 seconds later, the phone rings again, and it's Randy Brecker. So like, Randy, what's up? He says, hey man, he says, how come you haven't called Lou? I said, I know, John just called me. I said, like, I'm gonna call him now. He says, okay, well, make sure you call him. So he hung up, and then I got the number, and I called Lou finally. And I said, Lou, this is Earl. And he starts like, he says, wow man, he says, I was wondering how come you weren't calling me back? I said, well, I was supposed to do this gig in Europe, and I wasn't sure. I said I thought it was like just for audition for one show, and I kind of didn't think it would be worth it to pass on a gig that was actually going to pay me to take a chance on doing one show. He says, yeah. He says it's for they're auditioning the band for them putting the band together for the show, like the house band. I was like, oh, okay. He says, yeah. He says you're going to audition with Robin and Steve Turre's supposed to audition, and he says you're with Robin. So he told me when it was going to be and everything. So I got out of the gig. I figured out how to call Europe, and I got out of the gig, and I went to the audition. So the other part of it was on the way into the audition. I was living upstate at the time, like up in Goshen. I had to come in from Goshen to the city. The audition was downtown, like on 4th Avenue, so like down 11th Street or something. And so I'm coming in, and it was raining that day, and they were bringing these trucks across the bridge, so they had to stop traffic.
Oh no.
So I was sitting there, and I'm late, and it's raining, and I'm late, and getting made late because of these trucks. So I finally get down there. It's about, I guess about 15, 20 minutes late. I pull up, and I park the car, like right near a fire hydrant. I don't even know if it wasn't legal, but I just parked the car and said, I got to get in there because, this is great. Blow off this other gig and then get here late and have them go like, oh, sorry, it's too bad. So I go in there. And I sit down, and he goes, and Howard Shore comes up. He was the the leader at the time. He wasn't in the band. He was just the MD, or I don't know what he did, but his name was still up on the thing. He was like, so he says, Earl, right? I said, yeah. He says, hi, Howard Shore. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Blah blah blah. He says, listen, yeah, you're gonna go up in a few minutes. So if you want to warm up, if you want to take your horn out and warm up, feel free. And I'm like, so like this gig is never gonna happen. I was like, that's okay. I said I don't need to warm up. I said I'm not gonna be here that long anyway, probably. And he the look on his face, he was just kind of like, okay. So whatever you want to do, so you'll be coming up. So I walk into the room, and Robin's up there with Mac Gallahan. They're up there playing. Mm. So the band they played a tune, they finished, they go, oh yeah, that sounds great. Do another one. Sounds great. So they must have played about 4 or 5 tunes. Meanwhile, Toure was there. He was already there. He's like, so they were up there going. So they finished playing their 4 or 5 tunes, and me and Steve were sitting there going like, we're not getting this gig because they sounded great. They played like 4 or 5 tunes. Okay, good. So then they go, okay, thanks, and say, okay, you guys go get set up. So I finally took my horn out, played a couple notes and got up on the thing. So we get up there, and he's like, okay, yeah, Cat, so take out whatever chart it was. So we take it. So Lenny was already there. They had the band together, so they were just looking for trombone and trumpet right then. Because I think Alex was already there. Alex Foster was already there. Lenny Pickett was already there. So they take out a chart. We played his chart down. And it's like, okay, cool. I said, yeah, sounds good. Thanks. So let's take out this other chart. So you take out another chart. We played about halfway through, and then they stopped. They said, like, okay, that was good enough. So, okay, thanks a lot. We'll see you later. We'll let you know what's happening. So me and Steve were playing with McCoy's band, and the reason why I was playing with McCoy's band was because Faddis was supposed to be doing that week with them, but he had to get out of it, and he recommended me to do the gig with McCoy. So that was another phone call of like, Earl, it's McCoy Tyner. I'm like, yeah, right, sure. No, really, it's McCoy Tyner. I was like, So I'm very like, I'm like, I can't believe I still don't believe I'm like, I get to play with like all these like people I've heard and stuff. I'm actually like there. So that's how I got McCoy's gig was doing this week at the Vanguard with McCoy's band. So me and Steve after the audition, we went to eat dinner because we were downtown anyway. We were down near the Vanguard, so we went to eat dinner, and and we're sitting at this this Chinese restaurant, and we're sitting there going like, that was a waste of time. That was bull. Like, we didn't need to do this. He's like, yeah, like I didn't need to do this. He's like, this is rock and roll, blah blah. And I'm going like, yeah, I gave up this gig in Switzerland. I said, but at least I'm doing Vance. I mean, at least I'm doing McCoy's band. Like, said, but still, I said that was a waste of time. Like. And so we're just going, and we're going off, and we're just like, yeah, that was stupid. Like, yeah. And so the next day, or I think it was the next day or 2 days later, I get a phone call from Delgado. He says, Earl, this is Lou Delgado. I was like, hey Lou, how you doing? And I'm sitting there like, yeah, well, here we go. Like, here it comes. Like, yeah, so how's it going? He says, good. He says, so, and I'm like. I'm ready to like rail on him. I'm like, you know what? That wasn't a fair audition. He says, yeah. He says, yeah, I got the gig. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, what? He says, yeah, you got the gig. I was like, you mean SNL? He says, yeah. I said, really? He says, yeah, you got the gig. You and Steve. I was like, okay, thanks. And I'm like, I said, you're serious? So you sure you got the right number, right? And he just was laughing because I just was still not believing it was happening. So he says, yeah. He's like, yeah, got the gig. I'll let you know when we're starting and blah blah blah. And so after I hung up from him, I called Ture, and I said, Steve. He says, yeah, I just heard. He said, yeah, did you talk to Lou? I'm like, yeah. He says, you believe this? I'm like, no. Yeah, that was it. That's how we got the gig.
That's such a great story.
We were in total shock.
It's unbelievable.
It's tough. It's a great. I mean, it's the greatest gig. Like for. I mean, I enjoy it so much. It's like you say, it's like once a week, and I mean, as far as chops are concerned, it's not the greatest gig because contrary to what people might think, we blow our brains out. Like, people see us going into the commercial and they think that, well, that's it. But we rehearse in the morning, and Lenny's like. Lenny's so organized, and he goes through all the charts. And we must play. I'm gonna have to count next on Saturday. I'm gonna count how many charts. I mean, we got millions of charts.
Right.
But every Saturday he has like 2 stacks of charts. And he has a stack that we're gonna play on the show, and then the other stack that he might decide to pick from. And the rehearsals are. It's just like we go from one to the other. It's. So you go in there and you haven't really done anything all week except practice. It's brutal,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. And the advice I take from that is, unless you play as good as Earl Gardner, call people back.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I'm so much better now. Thanks to my wife.
And we should take a second to your lovely wife Cecilia was kind enough to come up for the interview today, and thanks to her for putting together your resume and bio, because I know you wouldn't do it on your own. But it was making things very easy for me today, so we sure appreciate her.
She makes everything easy for me. She's the love of my life.
Let me ask you back to kind of a little bit more in a big band mode, but as a lead player and as one of the premier lead players anywhere in the world, what do you look for in section players? Because obviously most of the time people get to play with you, they may or may not be the lead player because you're most likely going to be doing it.
Because I get stuck with it.
But what do you look for? You've played with some of the great section players of all time, but what are, just kind of for young folks out there, what are some of the characteristics you look for?
I just want some. I like to have guys that play up to me, that are gonna play at the same level volume wise as me, and just follow, just be aware, like listen, because that's when you're playing lead. Well, for me anyway, I can't speak for everybody because everybody's different.
Sure.
Not necessarily everybody's different, but everybody has a different approach. Different way of playing. Different equipment, whatever. But I like to have, I like to have my section right under me, because I look at it as like they're supporting, they're carrying me, So I want guys that are gonna push me, and it's my job to let them know when it's too much. I'd rather have somebody come in and be like that, like play strong right from the get go, and have me say like, okay, you can come back on, you can bring it back some, because that's what Porcino did for me. I mean, when I first started with Thad and Mel, we were over in Europe, and I had just joined the band. I was playing the third part, and we were doing a sound check, and Thad was like, he says the balance is off in the trumpets. He says I can hear Al, but I'm not hearing enough of the inner voices, and he was so he said. So Al was like, he said you can play louder. He says just and I thought I was matching him, from what I could hear. I was playing. I thought I was playing. I'm not as loud as I could, but I was playing. I thought loud enough. And that was like, he said the balance is off, and I'm not hearing enough of the inner voices. So for the next like 3 or 4 gigs, I was like, he said, don't be afraid, just, don't be afraid, blow, So I did, so I was I'm playing like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm playing what I thought was too loud, and he was like, yeah, it's fine, so after about the 3rd or 4th night, he looked over because I was really, by then I was like, I'm honking, I'm honking those third parts out, like, because Dad's up there smiling, like, and so after about the 3rd or 4th night, we finished doing some chart, and I must have really was like honking, because now I'm going like, okay, well, nobody said anything yet. So Al leaned over, he says, okay, you can cut back a little bit now. Not too much, but you can bring it back. So I was like, oh, okay, sorry. Oh, it's okay. But he says, you got the idea, but you can bring it in. I got that from him, in the sense that, you want people under you that are going to play, to your level, and going to support you. And as far as like, guys playing in a section, err on the side of too much, and it's up to the lead player to tell you to bring it back, because that's where you get the support. If you have to, you don't want as a lead player, you don't want to have to say like play louder. Sometimes you have to. It's like for people that aren't, guys that aren't used to working in a big band, that sometimes you need to say like, you can blow.
Yeah.
Because even like in McCoy's band, I would have to tell, some guys to pump it out, because I'm not gonna mention anybody's name, but there was
come on.
No, I'm not gonna. No. But there was this one person who I love to death would be. He like in McCoy's band, like I said, everybody was a great soloist, except for me, and so sometimes guys they wouldn't care too much about playing the parts. They were more focused on their solo. Yeah, they wanted to save their chops for when they got their one chance to blow, because there were so many soloists. Everybody didn't get a chance to. I mean, everybody got a chance to blow at some point, but you got maybe one chart. There'd be one tune that you got to blow on, that you got to stretch out on.
Right.
So because McCoy would like to give everybody a chance. Except for me, because, McCoy was a drag. I am kidding. But everybody at some point would get a chance to blow on something, during the course of the gig. But this one guy would kind of blow the parts off, and it was only 3 trumpets, so it wasn't like a full,
Right.
And we didn't have, like I said, we didn't have that many charts, that many parts to blow at the beginning, before Dennis started writing for the band. So, one night I said, look, You got to play the part because there's only 3 of us, and the 2 of us are playing, and your part is an independent part, and it's not being. I said you got. I said look, you got. I said you got to play. You got to play the part. I said you can't save your chops for your solo. Because you may not get a solo that night, so the whole night's wasted you saving them, and then you don't get a chance to play. But the important thing is like you're only getting 1 solo a night, and that's the important thing is playing the part.
Right.
So
that's really good advice. I think that's
playing
spot
in the
on
section. You gotta play the parts. That's you gotta play the parts. It's really important.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole band. It's the whole.
That's great advice. Thanks for that, Earl. That's great. As we wind down here, I just want to ask you a couple more questions, but kind of quick.
Done.
I told you I would be done.
I said, I gotta go.
Just you're one of the legendary New York lead players. I wanted to just throw out a couple of names of legendary New York lead players, and just your thoughts about them, memories about them,
I hate
relationship. Them all. But you touched on him a little bit. But a very important guy in the pantheon of New York lead trumpet players with John Faddis.
Yeah, John he's incredible. He's just he's in a class by himself. There's not a whole lot of people that come close to what he can do. And he's just a great trumpet player. Like when you think of Faddis, you think of like high notes. People think they think of all high notes, but he's much more than that. He's a great lead player. If he's on a band, he's playing lead. He's playing lead like he's laying it down.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing it the way he does it. It's like very very precise. He can play like everything like right there, precise. But he can swing too. He swings. He's a combination of everything.
Mm-hmm.
He does it all. And that's from doing Thad Mel. He was he was playing lead with Thad Mel for 2-3 years, I guess. And he really learned what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get on that band, there's a certain style. And that Snooky and like Blade that started the whole thing. He's and John just he does it all kinds of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Put any kind of style. John does like the Thad Mel, Basie, Ellington. John he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, awesome.
And he's great.
That's awesome. And then we were talking about him before the interview started, and you can share those stories too. It was great. But the late great Lou Soloff.
Lou was so special. He was great. He knew music. He loved playing high notes. He couldn't play nobody. No, there were a few people, but not too many people can play as high as John. But Lou always tried. He always tried, and but he knew he knows music. He loved music. He loved playing the trumpet. He loved trumpet. He loved mouthpieces.
That he did, right?
He was just. He like I said, he knew all the styles, and he liked to try stuff. He liked to try stuff on different on different bands, different types of music. He would try different things. He was always trying to get inside the music, and I tell you a quick story about Lou when he subbed at the Vanguard. He came in late, of course, because he was always late. He came walking in, and we were up there. We started the gig already. We had played the first two, and 3 trumpets. And Mel's up there, and Mel's like, "Where the hell's Lou?" I don't know. I called him. He's coming. So he shows up after the first tune, and he's playing. He's going to be playing third. He's over here next to Mel. So he comes in, he's got like 3 cases, and I mean, I'm sorry, and you know how small it is up there, and he's like climbing over it, like, oh, sorry, I'm late, and like, it's like, it's okay, Lou, just get the horn out, let's go. and Mel's looking at him like, come on, Lou, let's go, like. So he takes the horns out, sets them up, and then he pulls out this little case, and he opens it up, and he's got 10 mouthpieces in it. And I'm just looking at it like. So Mel's like, he said, "You ready, Lou? You ready?" So it's like, yeah. So Mel calls it to him, and he does a Thad thing. This is like some leaders. Apparently they learned it from Dorsey or Basie. That whenever somebody comes in cold, they start playing. They play right away. Right. So Mel calls his tune, and he says, "This tune's going to feature Lou Soloff on trumpet." Lou's like, so he takes his horn, and gets the mouthpiece. We start the tune, and Lou starts blowing, and he's like going, and Lou sounds like Lou. He sounds great, and he's switching mouthpieces like during the solo. So like, you play a couple chords, and he's switching, and we're looking at him like, what? So I'm like, Lou, what do you think? He's like, what does this sound like? And I'm like, Lou, focus, Lou, focus. That was Lou.
Classic Lou.
Yeah, he was one of a kind.
Yeah.
I loved him. He was just the best. And every time I'd see him, I'd be like, I can't believe I'm playing with Lou Soloff. Because like we were talking before, like the spinning wheel, But even before that, like playing with Chuck Mangione and like this one thing. Look to the Children. He was on this thing with Porcino was playing lead, and Lou was on the album too, and just hearing Lou, Lou could play everything. Like classically, classical trumpet. He was great. And jazz, and he was just special. He was one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, I think that goes for Lou, but also goes for you. There's not a person in New York who doesn't speak that highly of you. And as we close out today, everybody in New York refers to Earl Gardner as Bird. So I have a feeling I know where it came from, but I don't think I've ever heard the actual official explanation. So I don't think there's a better way to end the interview than how did you get the nickname Bird?
Well, Thad gave me the nickname. It was all Thad. It's all Thad's fault. When I joined the band, I was like about 350 pounds. I was huge. And we had just gotten to Europe. It's my first. It might have been the first time I was on a plane. But I got my trumpet. I got my trumpet and flugel in the case, in a double case, and I guess I had a shoulder bag, and I had another carry-on thing with me. And I'm walking down to we're going to baggage claim, and Thad and Mel were behind me. And so we got the baggage claim, and he says, you know what? He says, from the back, he says, you look like Big Bird. I was like, what? He says, yeah, like, because I had this big butt, and I'm waddling down the thing, like, and he says, from the back, he said, you look like Big Bird. He said, I'm going to call you Big Bird. And I was like, okay. And that's where it started.
Oh, okay, okay.
So when I lost all the weight, they were still calling me Big Bird. And Pepper used to call me Grosse Vogel because that was like Big Bird in German. He's like Grosse Vogel, and I'm like Pepper. And I didn't know when he saw it. I was like, what? What's that? What's that? Oh, it's Big Bird in German. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever.
May not catch on, but
not quite as catchy, but. So it's Pepper. So you can call me whatever you want. So when I lost the weight, I think it was Dodgen. He said we can't call you Big Bird anymore. He said we can call you Little Bird. And I was like, it's like whatever. Yeah, I didn't care. I'm just here. They call me whatever you want. And so then Thad decided to shorten it to Bird. He says, we're just gonna call you Bird. I think it was either Thad or Dodgen. One of them just decided that they were just gonna start calling me Bird. So at first I didn't I didn't like it because I'm like, I was like, you can't call me Bird. And Mel was like, because Mel was, he's like, he really liked them. I said, you can't call me Bird. He says, why not? I said, because there's already like a bird. Like first of all, it's like there's Bird. Everybody knows Bird, right? He plays, alto. You ever hear him? Like, come on, Mel. He's like, and I said, this Charlie Bird. I said, like this, but Charlie Parker, that's Bird. He says, yeah. He says, but you're Bird on the trumpet. I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. It's like I said, I don't play jazz. I said, I'm not a jazz player. He says, well, you play. He said, you're a jazz lead player. I'm like, okay, that's all well and good, but still, there's already a Bird. So I didn't. So I really didn't like it at first. He said, no, it's fine. But when I finally accepted it, when I finally said it was okay, it was going into a gig, a rehearsal or a gig, and Frank West was on the thing, him and Jimmy Heath. And Frank West came up to me, he said, Bird, like he was asking me a question, and I'm like, I said, well, if Frank West thinks it's okay to call me Bird, then who am I to argue? Like that's... because this is Frank West. If he doesn't think if he thinks it's okay, and Jimmy Heath and like all these like legends, they have no problem with it.
You're gonna have to go.
I can accept it. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't like it, but it was just like it felt like it just felt wrong because I'm like I'm not even a jazz player. I don't play. I said I'll play on the blues, but that's just like basic stuff. I just not to get embarrassed.
Well, there you go. Next time you see Earl, you can call him Bird, and with confidence, we know we came from the source, so right, it's official now.
Feel free. Frank West said it was okay, so.
Well, Earl, this has actually been a wonderful treat, and I thank you again for taking the time to come up. And you can hear him. Me. You can hear him almost every Saturday on Saturday Night Live, and you can hear him many, many times here in New York with the best jazz bands in the world and out on the road. One of the all-time greats, and Earl, thank you again.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
We will see all of you next time on Bone2Pick.